How's everyone doing? You are listening to Spirit Switchboard. I am your host, Kerrilynn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. So I hope everyone has had a great week. It is nice to be back. Sun is shining finally here. Hi, James. How are you doing? And I love that you're chiming in from, hi, Mish. It's nice to have you here. I love, James, that you're chiming in from your YouTube channel, which is Wizard Radio FM. So if you guys want to head over and show some love and follow James too, that would be appreciated. Hi, Contessa. What a great show with Father Sean and Laura Lee today. And Annette. If you guys were watching, if you missed it, it's Father Sean's Paranormal Ministries. It's right before my show here. And they had fellow UPRN host. It was a very good show. And our beautiful Laura Lee Potvin from the Angel Rock on Mondays and the thing at the foot of the bed with David Hansel on Thursdays. You caught the last bit. Hi, Lois. Thank you for being here. Hi, Julie. Definitely spring has started, eh? I started back with, I call it the event season. So all the spirits and sweets, dining with the deads. Oh, thank you, Lois. I had a moment and I cut it today. I went in the bathroom and cut my hair and pinned the bangs back because I'm still kind of getting used to what I did. Okay, so event, spirits and sweets, dining with the dead, all that fun stuff has started. I'm doing, if you are in the Guelph, Ontario area, I am doing an event at a place called Coach and Lantern in Ancaster. Dining with the Dead event. It is a 250-year-old stone building that has a history of in-house spirits. So it's going to be super fun to do the Dining with the Dead event there. I'm really excited about doing it. All kinds of fun stuff happening. I have not yet updated my website. My wonderful friend who helps me with emails and everything else has gently sent me a message today saying that she would do it for me because I have had it on my to-do list for over a month. So people think I'm not doing anything this year, but I got very little room to add more. Hi, Sam. So Sam from Pretty Paranormal, thank you so much for being here. Sam Hunley has been on the show before. If you haven't followed her on YouTube, please take a moment to do so. Sam has uploaded her Wicked video. Please check that out. And Sam, is it this week that you're doing the Johnny Cash one? Your dinner with Johnny Cash? I saw that too. Please follow. It's amazing. She's also producing Bigfoot Banter with Richie B. On tomorrow night at 6, Richie and Wojo are going to go live outside with the podcast, and then they're going to do their boots on the ground investigation after. So head over there. Next week is Johnny Cash. Oh, the video on structures, Bigfoot structures. Fabulous. Hi, Joanne. Joanne, I just talked about the Coach and Lantern. I'm really excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to bring some paranormal equipment for people to have on their tables. And then I'll still share and do gallery readings afterwards. So it'll be great. The newsletter, if you head to the website, it's just kerrilynshellhorn.com. If you are new here, thank you for being here. You're so welcome. You're welcome, Sam. If you head to the website, I have a newsletter. The newsletter, I honestly am so busy and too ADHD to do any more than once a month. So I send a newsletter at the beginning of the month. It has an intuitive tip. It gives you all of where I'm going to be. It doesn't list everywhere. It will list where there's still availability for tickets for events. A lot of the places that I work out of, the events have sold out for the year already. So I've tried to add some new things, new venues. So there's still some availability to be able to connect in person. And what else is on there? The list of Spirit Switchboard guests. So when I list the guests, I also send out a link where you can purchase their books, their websites, so you can check out who they are, so you can mark your calendars, read their books before they come on to the show, so you can connect in the conversation and engage in a different way as well too. Oh, Joanne, I'm I don't know, James, how popular I am. I'm just pretty normal, just pretty regular. Just pretty regular, I'd say. Events are fun though. And it's super weird. I did an event at, please, if anybody's in the chat that was there, let me know if I'm doing this wrong. I think they pronounce it's just EVO. I don't think it's a word. I think it's the letters, but I could have been doing this wrong the whole time. And it's this fabulous place in Cambridge, Ontario. And I did my event there, the Dining with the Dead event, for the first time, and it ran so smoothly. Hi, Stephanie Marie from the Enfield House. We are getting there. I promise you, I'm so excited. So we did this event, and they're used to having this like really huge event, and with the Dining with the Dead, I try to keep it really small so it's intimate, and there's a lot that's happening, and sometimes it feels like speed dating with dead folks. It is like ping 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 ping. I am shooting messages to everybody. So while people are having dinner, I sit in my little corner, and it's like 3D vision, night vision in my head. So spirits are showing me where their people are in the room. So I map out the room, I plot it all off, kind of get them in a queue so that when they're done dinner, I go in and I start shooting off it's the word. Okay, thank you, Julie. Yeah, I muck lots of stuff up saying stuff. So it's Evo? Or am I doing that wrong too? Chances are I am. I'm really sorry. Taryn, if you're listening, I'm sorry. But it's a beautiful location and the event is great. And if you guys have been following me for a while, you also know how scared I am of steps that have no risers, like that you can see through. And that's what they have. Like I get in there, and that's the first thing that I see are these steps that I have to go up 2 flights of stairs where you can see through them. And it was like, I was trying really hard to not panic. But it ran so smooth and it was great. Anyway, where I was going by Squirrel and Red, both stories. They wanted, because there was such a big demand, there were so many people that wanted tickets, and we sold out right away. Like it was a really short, like 4-hour period, and it was sold out. So they had asked about selling more, and I said, no, keep it small and keep it intimate. And so it was the first time she had seen me work, and she's like, oh, okay, now I get it. Like that was a lot of emotion. It was just so many people got read, and it's really big emotions, and people's stories are coming out to have done all that. Everybody saw my fear that was standing, because they didn't let anybody up yet into the event. So everybody that was there that was a ticket purchaser was watching me go as I'm trying to get up the steps without completely panicking. It was not good. Thank you for being here, Joshua. Stephanie Murray, we are going to get the show started, and we're going to bring Rebecca out now. So let me just switch some things around here. Did I get it? Okay. honestly. So I had this opportunity when we're talking about the crazy fear that I have. I had the opportunity to go to David Oman's house in Benedict Canyon, which is just a couple doors down from where the Sharon Tate and Manson thing happened, right? The unaliving that happened there. And got invited to go down, and in his home, he was actually on Paranormal Heart recently, so you can check that out. And if you go on YouTube, it is the one video of me being in that house, and I'm holding David's pants at his waist and his shirt, holding it, and using salty words and deep breathing and trying really hard to not cry. And it sounds horrible because I'm like, slow down, speed up, stop, no, faster. Because we're trying to maneuver it's 3 flights of stairs with no risers, with glass walls on each side that jut out over the canyon. And I'm like, please just leave me downstairs with all of the dead folks, because I would rather sit there for hours than have to do those stairs. So, yep, the only video footage that's available for people to see of my experience at David Oman's house, which was incredible. It's an incredible place to experience, is me doing those crazy steps. And you're all welcome now that I have shared that. Okay. Best-selling author. I made this list of all of the books that I have purchased, I have read, and I adore in every way. So yeah, countdown to murder series, history and hauntings. Best-selling author Rebecca F. Pittman. Thank you for being here.
Happy first day of spring.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You too. Is it sunny where you are?
It is gorgeous. Yeah, it is. I'm in Colorado, and it is really sunny and pretty today.
That's so good. It didn't start out that way today here, but it ended that way, which is great.
I'm just happy winter's officially over. I realize we're still going to get snow off and on, but I actually saw crocuses at the end of my driveway and clapped my hands and jumped up and down. So that's a good sign.
Did you have a long winter there this year?
It wasn't that bad, but we're not done yet. March is typically our dump month, and I keep waiting for it. We got a little, but not what we usually get.
We get I don't know. It was a weird winter for us here. Northern Ontario was just smashed with it. And that's where I'm from, Northern Ontario. And I need to remember, if I forget, folks, please pop off a message to me to post it. My mom, so my family lives 9 hours north of me. And my mom is not a very tall person. None of the ladies are in our family very tall. If we reach 5 feet, we're doing good. And my aunt sent a picture of my mom, who's 73, standing on the roof of her house shoveling the snow off.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
And the snow is like up to her hip. So that's what I aspire to be like, my mom. But if she had fallen off and not told anybody where she was or what she was doing, they probably wouldn't have found her to spring, because the snowbanks were taller than her everywhere, like crazy amounts of snow. And I think they got blasted again yesterday. It's crazy.
Well, I'm 6'2".
Are you really?
I am. I have 4 sons that are 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", and 6'8", and they pat me on the head and call me kid. So, yeah, we're a tall bunch. No, there are no jockeys in my family.
That is glorious. My aunt gets upset if you don't include the 3/4 when you say that she's like 4'10" or 4'11".
Get it all in there.
Yes, like not even 5 feet tall. My one aunt, oh my gosh, when she walked in front of the dresser, she couldn't even see her head in the mirror.
Oh, I've
Like
never had that problem.
my daughter is 5'6", and we feel like she's tall and glorious for us in our family structure. She's beautiful, but yeah, none of us get that tall.
Well, I
And I get that a
appreciate,
lot from people. Like, we thought you'd be taller. I mean, it's just my personality big. It's
isn't
not
that weird how people have that opinion of you? I've had people say, I thought you'd be blonde, and I want to say, why?
what does
What,
blonde? Yeah. Where does that come from?
yeah, I don't know. But
Oh,
anyway, I appreciate you having me on today. I mean, the Enfield House is such an incredible story.
and
And
we have them here in the chat. I'm so glad you guys got the message. Thank you for joining in and chiming in. You guys mark your calendars for April 4th, because the family that that has owned that house for close to 20 years now, correct? Like, is it the last 18?
Mhm.
Will be joining us to give us, their firsthand account. Hi, Kathy. Thank you for being here. If you missed the first time that Rebecca was on, we talked about Lizzie Borden. And I will never forget. I talk about it. I tell everybody about when you were on that show and how you called that book your doorstop.
It's a big book.
It is a big book. And what I appreciate about how you write is it is non-judgmental. It's from an outside point of view in all directions, giving everybody the opportunity to have their own opinion based on the information you're presenting. You just present the facts and information, and it's so well researched. And just like the Lizzie Borden book, in the 1771 Enfield House, you researched and found out more information that wasn't even known. Like, I adore you.
I have to give some credit to Samantha Lee at the Enfield Library. Um, she was so cute. I just went to her to try to find some of the area maps. And when she heard what I was doing, she would come back periodically. I found this newspaper article. So she went into her archives,
Love it.
and then I'd go back to her. I said, you don't happen to have one about this, do ya? And so I have to give her props. Plus Jay and Elka and Mackenzie and Courtney, the Yaples that own the home,
Yeah.
have a treasure trove of information that they have collected over the years. I'm talking filing systems, boxes, and they were so kind to share that with me. So they had done a lot of work.
Yeah. It's, and you can, I don't even know if was there a stone unturned when you were researching it. There's so much information in the book, and I'm not even sure where's the best place to start with the very beginning history. Like, one of the things I had wrote down, if it's an okay place to start, was just the land itself. I wrote 20 minutes from that house, the Connecticut witch trials took place 40 years before. So, like,
Before Salem.
before Salem. Yeah. Like, the land itself has this history that could hold that trauma, that could contribute to that land, because it's the land that, there's other houses. There's just so much. I don't even know where to start. I'll stop. You start.
No, the interesting thing is there's at least 12 interviews in the book from people who are firsthand witnesses at the home. A lot of them are the elite, if you will. John Zaffis from The Haunted Collector. A lot of these men were so kind to give me their time in interviews for the book. And they all said they thought the land had a lot to do with it. But this was an area that was seriously discovered. This is where the British invaded. There were Indian wars on the exact property where the Yaples House stands. They're only 2 miles, if that, from the Connecticut River. And so all of this stuff, there was Indian encampments, there were wars. The Revolutionary War went through there. They're still finding skeletons around that area. And back then, every time there was a war and the English forced the Indians farther and farther out of their land, and even took them as slaves if they didn't kill them, a lot of times, and this is documented, that these Indians would curse the land rather than just leave it behind for these people. They had literally decimated their lives.
Yeah.
And if you believe in Indian curses and things like that, it could have begun with that, but there was a lot of bloodshed in that area. And then the first settlers came over from the Salem colony and started building, and their houses were like one street over from where Jay's house is now. That's
Yeah.
how
And
old
those
it
were
is. His is one of the oldest houses in the area.
and the people that coming over from Salem were Puritans, correct? So like that whole
Correct.
religious fervor that happened in that time period, adding to fear, because it was such a fear-based religion.
Yeah, it was, and it was such a stranglehold. That's the best word I can think of. I mean, you've got somebody with this Puritan faith, and yet they've got people in the stockyard things. They're punishing them in front of everyone. They're shaming them. The whole thing that went on with Salem with the young girls being just, pressed down. Children were to be seen and not heard. They read the Bible all day or did chores, and they finally found an outlet for their teenage hormones, and all of this broke out with the Salem witch trial. They became superstars instead of these young girls who were almost subservient in their homes. And you weren't dancing and you weren't singing, and there was all this pent up emotion. But the Connecticut witch trials, and Thomas Gormley, who's one of the people I interview in the book, told me about that. He lives very close by, and they had more hangings than Salem did, more persecutions, and they were 40 years before Salem. And that was just literally less than 30 minutes from the Yapel home that we're talking about today.
Yeah. It's, and then depending on if you are energetically sensitive, you draw that to you. Or if
Yes.
there is this repeated traumas that happen in one spot, it brings more of that to that location. And,
Well, that's the thing. I mean, this goes back 200 years, this home. And
yeah,
there's been 24 owners. 23 of the 24 owners had something happen to them that was outside the ordinary.
yeah,
And
that's,
we're not talking just bumping your toe. We're talking violent things and deaths and just really strange things. An inordinate amount of twins were associated with that house, including Jay and Elka. Their daughters are twins. And people started wondering if the house was, bringing in twins for some reason. But we can get into that, but there are so many deaths, mysterious falls, people taking their own life inside of that house. But I'll tell you what's different with Jay and Elka's story, because I just finished a book about the Smurl family. And that's the new Conjuring 4 movie coming out, is about the Smurls, and it just was released yesterday. But this one's atypical, because normally with these hauntings, they start out with small annoyances, things that are disappearing. It's just enough to get you off guard, offset. You blame it on the kids at first. And that's like textbook. In every case I've done on this, they start out little. And it's like I've had experts say they're grooming you, these entities. They're starting out little, because and even Mackenzie Yapel said this in my interview with her. She's 18 and she's one of the twin daughters in the home, and she's lived there her whole life. She was born there. And she said, if we'd seen all of the really bad stuff in the beginning, we'd have been out of there. It
right.
came in little by little until we would get accustomed to it, and then it would ramp things up. But with the Yapels, it started out violent. It didn't start out with missing objects. The very first thing that happened was Elka, 7 months pregnant with the girls, was pushed down the front cement steps of the home by unseen hands. And that is scary. She
It
landed
is
on the
scary.
sidewalk on her stomach, and Jay rushed her to the hospital. And again, we're talking twins. And then if you want, I can continue with what happened when they got home.
Yeah. And if you have not, like I have been touched by spirits, I'll get touched by people just in sessions. It's a literal, you can literally feel fingers. And when you say that you could feel yourself being pushed, that is not an exaggeration. It's real. It is, yeah. And I'm not having the violent experience, so to have that is frightening, and pregnant is frightening. Falling and pregnant is frightening.
Yeah, especially down stone cement steps and landing on a sidewalk. But do you
Is it
want
the
me to?
response? Like, I mean, that's a bit, there would be so much emotional outburst in that moment, or in that, and does it feed? Do they feed off of that immediately? That's where my first thought goes to. Whatever those entities are, or energies are looking for those responses and energies, and it's like batteries, right, for them.
They don't, from what I've been told from all of these experts I've talked to, is they really don't dwell in a home where there isn't fear and negativity. They have to have that energy. And so, yeah, I mean, so it started out already, and they didn't know the history of the house when they moved in. They didn't look into it for a while yet, and it was only after all this strange stuff started happening. So they didn't go in with any preconceived ideas.
Yeah. And I know you guys are listening in the chat, so I'm going to save those questions for when you guys are on. I'm not going to ask the questions that I want to ask. We're going to keep those separate. I feel that we get pulled to locations for a certain reason as well too, whether we're aware of it in the moment or not. I think those reasons come to light later. But yeah,
Well,
you can continue from that.
the other thing that's different is the entity showed itself to them within a couple of months. And again, this is unusual from what my experience has been with things. Usually it's drops in temperature, it's foul odors, it starts out with rapping on the wall. This thing came out with guns blazing when Elka got home from the hospital with the twins. Well, actually, this is after they got back from the hospital from the fall, and the doctor said, you've got to have bed rest now until the babies come, because that was close. And Jay had to get back to work, so he got her settled in bed, and they have two little Yorkie dogs. And she was really nervous when he went out the door because she knew something had pushed her. But she's propped up in bed. She fell asleep for a little while, and she woke up because her little dogs were tearing all around the bed, just yipping, and they were just in a frenzy. And she went, be quiet, be quiet. She has a German accent. She's the sweetest thing. And she goes, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? And then she heard creaking on the floorboard downstairs. The bedroom is right at the top of the stairs on the second level. And she froze and she yelled out, Jay, is that you? And there was no answer. And she could hear something walking. And she said, Jay, please, if that's you, tell me. And there was no answer. And then she started to hear it come up the stairs. And she knew he wouldn't play a mean joke on her like that.
Yeah.
And the dogs are going nuts. So she's looking, her eyes are fixed on that open doorway to the shadowed hallway up at the top of the stairs. And all of a sudden, this giant black dog with hackles up and bright red eyes and drool, dripping, snarling at her, slinks in through that open doorway. And she was trapped. I mean, the only other place to go was up the attic steps, which are in their bedroom, but it could have trapped her up there. And she froze and she didn't know what to do. And she thought, maybe if I can get to the door and shut it and it can't get all the way in here. And when she went to get off the bed, it backed up into the shadows and disappeared. And so this thing let her see it right out of the gate. She called Jay. He came home, and as you can predict, there was nothing. He searched the whole house, and the door was locked. He locked it when he left. It was still locked. So the fact that this started out like that is unique. It really is.
You in the book, in the back of the book, you have map, like a drawing of both floors of the house
Right.
as well too, so people are able to see that.
Mhm.
There's so, yeah. And where do you go from there? Like, it's just one after the other. Then the babies come and the handprints hit.
That was, to me, I'm a mom, and oh my gosh, and things had been going on and on until they finally decided to try to get help from some investigative teams. And this one team was there, and the twins were in their cribs in their little nursery, and they were asleep. And the investigators had kind of gone through the house, and they met back down at the kitchen table to go over notes, and they hear this bam from upstairs. And so Elka and the lead investigator go racing up the stairs. Jay was shortly behind them. And when they got to the little girl's room, the Winnie the Pooh lamp was laying way over in the middle of the room, way away from the table it was on. Glass even had shot out into the hallway, and there was blood all over the room, including bloody handprints and the pictures in the book. Elka, they took pictures, and Elka was kind enough to let me use the photo. And the first thing they did was run to the babies, and their onesies had blood on it. And they hurried and stripped them and checked them, and there wasn't a scratch on them. And they had all these witnesses that saw this. Joe Frankie came running over, and he said, I don't know if it was blood or something that looked like blood, but it was everywhere. I mean, that's just chilling.
It, yeah, frightening. It's frightening and frightening. Frightening is doesn't even wouldn't even, and we're not even experiencing it, or the ones that are there having that experience. And those fingerprints are like elongated, like
Yeah, they are.
they're elongated. It's not a regular handprint. It is, I don't know, like what you would imagine if you were or see in movies, right? Like if it was a demon handprint, that's what it looks like. Um,
Well,
yeah.
Joe Frankie came in with his investigative team, and the girls by now they were about 1 year old. They could stand up and hold on to the crib. And one of his photographers went upstairs without him. The rest of the group was downstairs. The little girls were in their cribs. And all of a sudden, again, huge bam. And the photographer, she's a female, started yelling, help me, help me. And she had gone toward the bedroom, and Courtney is closest to the door, and she was bouncing up and down at the end of the crib holding on to it. And I guess she went to take a picture of Courtney, and something picked her up and threw her down the hallway, the photographer. And I guess she was a fairly good sized lady, 5'6", about 220, 230, and it threw her clear down the hallway. She hit the door jamb of Jay and Elka's room. But here's what's fascinating, Kerrilynn. Because they were doing an investigation, they had cameras set up in that room, static cameras that were rolling. And Joe showed me the film, and it's probably one of the biggest paranormal captures I've ever seen. You see Courtney jumping up and down, and then you hear this voice come out of her. Again, she's one, and it's a female voice, and it says, sit down. And you hear all of this on the video, and then Elka comes running in after it threw the photographer down. Elka is standing there facing the camera trying to get Courtney, and all of a sudden you hear a growl. And it's like it's down by Elka's ankles, and it is this guttural, beastly growl. And Elka goes, there's something growling in here. And you see the fear on her face. And when she picks up Courtney, you see this blob exit the other end of the crib and go into the wall.
And you
I
have
have
those
never
photos.
seen
Mm,
anything like that. I have the photos in the book, but compared to watching it in real time, and
yeah.
Joe takes this film on his tours that he does. He worked with Ed and Lorraine Warren for 40 years. And that growl really got to me, because they'd told me so many times about the growling they'd heard, but once you hear it, it goes right through you. It's just bone chilling.
Hmm. And so again, we're not watching it, but you can still see and feel that fear on Elka's face in
Hmm.
the book. In that photo, you can see
Yeah.
that it is fear that she has in that moment. And you have a succession of them, like with Courtney recognizing that something is there. So she's babbling. Was she not babbling
Yeah.
towards it
She
as
had a
well
little
too, right?
pacifier, but
Yeah.
and that's the other thing. She had a pacifier in her mouth. She couldn't have said sit down, but you hear it really clearly, and it's a female voice.
Yeah, frightening. I in a house that we lived in Northern Ontario got growled at by something in our house once. Got scratched by that thing, and I'm sure it's not as near as guttural as what that was, but it was still pretty guttural and growly enough that I called somebody crying, going, "What the heck?" And you don't ever forget those things. There's trauma that happens when you have those kind of experiences.
Well, I mean, this thing was so powerful that because the nursery seemed to be the epicenter for a lot of activity, Elka took her grandmother's beautiful German Bible and put it up on the top shelf of the closet in the little girl's bedroom to watch over them. And it was like a couple of hours later, they heard this loud thump and went in there, and this thing had literally shredded the Bible and thrown it all over the bedroom. So for something to not even be, to fear a Bible and rip it apart, they let me hold the Bible, and all of the shredded papers, they tucked them back into it. They were thrown everywhere. There was even some lying in the crib. I mean, that's an in your face kind of good luck with that, because it didn't bother me at all kind of thing.
Yeah, and you're right. They had big guns, in there helping them. And this wasn't just like one shot helping. It's Joe Frankie, right? He was there from 2007 to 2010. They were repeated visits in helping with that intense activity that was going on. And we haven't really explained, like, for the people that are listening and don't know about this home. It's a duplex. It's not one big home. It's a duplex with two sides to it. Could you talk about like that layout as well
Yeah.
too?
So the family lives on the left-hand side. The right-hand side, they rent out for investigations.
And
And
they tried renting it to renters. Like they tried at one point having
they
people
could
living.
they couldn't keep renters in there. I mean, big surprise. The investigators that I talked to said that there was a lot of activity on the renter side. And frankly, that's where I started. I was there for 2 days, and we did most of the interview on the renter side, and they have it very nicely done. And I sat there and I thought, I don't feel anything. But then on the second day, when we went on to the side where the family lives, it was a whole different story. The whole atmosphere felt so oppressive to me, and I felt nervous. And while I was talking to them, Elka and I both looked up at the ceiling at the same time. Something was walking, and all of us were right there. There was nobody upstairs. The only way up is a staircase that's literally right next to me.
Right.
And I looked at her and she goes, something's walking up there. So when it was time to go up there and look at the rooms, I didn't really want to go. And we went up there, and the stairs to the attic leads right out of their master bedroom. It's not in a hallway, it's like it's part of the bedroom. When we started up those attic stairs, my heart started racing. I felt this different atmosphere. And it didn't help that I knew stories about the attic. But when we were up there, I couldn't get out of there fast enough. And something happened that Jay started sprinkling holy water around. And his daughter, Courtney, who was 18, and she was at the time of the book, her bedroom's up there. And she said that she had just seen shadow people. Courtney is very sensitive, and of the twins, she sees a lot more stuff. All that's not to say a lot doesn't happen to Mackenzie, but Courtney sees them. And she sees people floating above her bed. And so it was so bad that when we started back down the attic steps, I sandwiched myself between two men. So if something was going to push me, I was going to have to get them first. And I'm not like that. I've spent the night in the most haunted places in the world and by myself. I have never felt that before.
I was gonna say you have, so like the
I'm going to
Stanley.
switch this because I've got the blinds, afternoon stripes are coming in. I look
Gotcha.
like I'm behind bars. Anyway, go ahead.
So that's one place, a place with bars you haven't investigated yet, but who knows? That's could be coming. Stanley Hotel, Lamp Mansion, all kinds. What's the Parisian
The Myrtles Plantation.
Myrtles Plantation?
And then the Palace of Versailles. That was such a huge, I'm sorry, that was such a huge boon for me. I was the only author that the Palace let write about their paranormal activity. And that was huge. I was shocked because those palaces are so, they're kind of hoity-toity. They'd turned me down before and said, we don't talk about that. We only talk about the history. So when they said yes, because Marie Antoinette's ghost is so prevalent there, I was thrilled. And that's another big book.
Yes, it is.
There were a lot of Louis.
Yeah. But I love that. You are like a dog with a bone, relentless, and you share the history. It is factual and well researched, and I appreciate that in what you offer. So it's no different with the 1771 Enfield House. You researched it and you experience it and immerse yourself in the story in such a way you bring us along with it.
Thank you. That means so much to me. I've had people say that my books are like they're sitting in a living room just talking with me. That's a huge compliment for me. I don't want them to be dry. I want them to feel like you're right there. But the research is actually my favorite part. The ghosts are just kind of a bonus.
Well, and this takes it to a different level, really. Like the 1771 Enfield House took it to a different level for you in ghosts, because it's not just ghosts, it's something different, whether it's elementals or demonic. It is a different aspect, and it's layered. What is there is layered and continuing, but not at that same intensity. Correct?
Well, Jay told me they went through 7 priests. That's how often they had the house blessed. Father Robert McKenna, who is very famous, he was with the Amityville Horror blessing. He worked a lot with the Warrens. He came out twice. And then it was Jay Dodd and Neil Farley who finally came out and cleansed it in 2015. And they got a reprieve from the demon, but the ghosts were still coming. It's like once the demon got out of the way, the other ghosts attached to the house were free to come in. And I got to tell you my favorite.
Father Bob Bailey. Is it Father or Bishop Bailey?
Bishop Bailey also gave it a blessing, but it was at the end, it was Jay Dodd and Neil Farley that finally cleansed it. So or exorcised it. But I have to tell you my favorite one. Mackenzie told me this one. I called her the dripping lady because I'd never heard of this before. But their friends would come over, not as much anymore, and they didn't spend the night, which made me sad for these girls. Obviously, people were not thrilled to be there. But you'd be sitting there and suddenly water would drip down your face or onto your arm, and it would almost evaporate the minute it hit. And it's not coming from anywhere. There's no pipes in the ceiling right there. and it would drip on their friends. And a lot of people witnessed this. And then finally, one day, Courtney saw this teenage girl with long black hair in a white gown, soaking wet, floating above her bed in her bedroom. And so they're figuring that's where these water drops are coming from. In all of my research, I couldn't find anyone that, I know there was a well on the property. There was also the Connecticut River right there. I
I
don't
was
know if
just going to say,
someone drowned. And then I thought about the Salem witch trials, because they would do what they called swimming the witch, which would dip them into water to see if they were a witch or not, which was the most bizarre thing. If you, water's the purest element. So if it repelled the witch and she couldn't sink, then they knew it was a witch. If you did sink, you're not a witch, but sometimes they didn't get them out fast enough and they drowned anyway. So it could have been a number of things, but this young girl, in fact, Mackenzie told me she still sees her. Even when I did the book last year, she still sees her. And then Courtney would hear
that's
a
sad.
party through the wall. I mean, she'd put her ear to the wall and hear a party from the 1940s.
Yeah, I
A
remember
lot of
that.
weird stuff.
Yeah. And that's the layered part too, right?
Mhm.
It's the layered part. And the problem, I don't know, it's a problem is the right word, but when you're sensitive, it doesn't matter where you go, you could be picking up and not realizing that you're picking up and bringing home something
Yes.
either. So,
Yeah. Courtney said that she would go to other people's homes and see spirits there. She's just very sensitive. She would walk down the sidewalk and these people would walk past her, and she'd turn around and look and they were gone. So she sees them quite a lot, but it is so many different things. I mean, I can't even get into half of the things that went on in that home. They continue to go on. There are hot spots in the house, but you can go and rent it and do an overnight investigation. They just told me today they're going to start doing history tours. They're revamping the website. I know they've got some live documentaries and investigations coming up.
yeah, if you do follow like 1771 Enfield House on social media, they do have all that information there and their website. I just wanted to say hi people that are coming in. Hi, Denise. Yes, people are still living there. Hi, Michelle Wilfong. So Michelle Wilfong lives in a haunted apartment. If you follow her on TikTok, she's got videos that you can follow along with her journey there. My haunted apartment. I think I did that right. Michelle, you can correct me if I didn't. Sam, I know how much you love history. Honestly, you would. I know you will love Rebecca's books if you start to deep dive into them. What I found interesting when I started was the names, like the Enfield in the UK, Enfield here, and the Warrens being connected to both those stories in a fashion, and Prospect Place as well too. That's also another connection. Could you talk about some of that weirdness?
It is odd. I mean, people who saw the Conjuring 2 movie will remember that that was the Enfield. It was in Enfield in London. And to have another home in another town called Enfield across the pond, if you will, is not only interesting, because that's not what I would call a normal name, Enfield. But then one of the books I'm going to be doing is about Amy Gilligan, and she's the one behind the Arsenic and Old Lace, if you remember that old play. But this woman was a prolific serial killer that murdered 60 people in her boarding house and 2 husbands. And she lives 30 minutes away. Well, not anymore. She's dead now, but her home is on Prospect Street, which is exactly what Jay's is. In fact, the house number's only a number or 2 off. And I thought, what is going on here?
So like it's beyond averages in so many ways. Like the weirdness attached to this house and the property with the experiences, the 24 out of 25 people and that had owned that house and what occurred with them. Weird.
And twins.
The twins,
Yeah.
weird. The names are weird.
There are families that were almost completely wiped out. We're talking one family, the Gadaraskis, who were there in the mid 1940s. 5 children and only one survived. A couple of them took their own lives, and another one was in a tragic accident. I mean, for that, the mother ended up going insane and going into an asylum. I can't even, and these people that were taking their own lives were within a week of each other, 2 sons, and they were twins. There were twins in that family. It's just but do we have time for this real quick?
We have almost another hour. So we actually, before you start going, yeah, we got lots of time. Before we get into the next hour, I'm going to do our station ID so that once we get going, I don't forget, because that is important. And James, if you're still in the chat, gold star sticker for me today, because I did not need the reminder. Because sometimes we get talking so much that James has to remind me in the chat that I need to do my station ID. Yeah, I wish I could figure out how to get rid of it, but all right. So if you are just joining us now, thank you so much for being here. You are listening to Spirit Switchboard. I am your host, Kerrilynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM out of beautiful New Orleans. UPRN has so many shows, new shows coming in all the time, an amazing network of hosts. You can check out our website, uprntalkradio.com, to find out all about all those shows and hosts, and to access all of the archived shows as well too, so you don't miss anything. You can find us on Roku, Rumble, Amazon, anywhere you listen to podcasts, you will be able to find us. So thank you for being here. And our guest today is author Rebecca F. Pittman, and we are talking about all things history and haunting, which is a series of books that you write. And the books that we're talking about today are the 1771 Enfield House, and we will talk about the Small Family Horror as well too today.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
You're such
I love having you.
I love being here. You're just so genuine and warm, and I appreciate that you actually read the books and do your homework. It makes the interview so nice.
Yeah, I had somebody on recently, and they said the same thing to me, and I enjoy my guests, and I enjoy reading what they have to offer. And I don't know, it just feels ingenuine if you have somebody on and you don't have a vested interest, or you're not reading. It just feels.
It makes it hard. It makes it hard for the interviewee. I only had one that was a total nightmare, and the guy had not read the book. He didn't even know what we were talking about. He didn't know the subject matter. He didn't know any of it. And there'd be these long, awkward pauses. And then he'd go, "Oh, uh-huh. And then what happened?" It was the longest hour of my life.
I had one that didn't flow so well. I'm not sure what happened to that. And as an interviewee on I think, which is why I care so much about on my show, that person did no research about me at all, and then asked me if my husband liked or how he supported me in my job. And I had been divorced for probably 15 years at that point, and I have never remarried. There's no other person. And I'm like, well, partner position's open if anybody's wanting to take a take a stab at it. It was crazy.
It's just awkward, and you don't want to correct somebody.
I did.
I've been introduced as the completely wrong person, and I had to wait till they got through rattling off books that weren't mine before I went, not mine.
But we do support authors, but that's horrible.
It
Crazy.
was okay. It was hard to wait till they got through and I finally said, some author out there is going to love you. Those aren't mine.
Wow.
It's
That
okay.
it's so disrespectful at the same time. But I genuinely
think it was an honest mistake. I think they had
Yeah.
another interview coming up that week and they got them mixed up.
But I genuinely love, like, I wrote down, honestly, I have read them. Oh my gosh, the Pam Hupp. Ugh,
Wow. Can you
Alex-
believe her murder trial's next summer for the death penalty?
Yeah, that was something. But the Smurl family horror. So that book came out yesterday, right? So, and I
Yes.
purchased
You
it.
did. Oh, thank you.
I did it on Kindle so that I could get some of it read before today, because I wasn't going to be able to read the whole thing. But we can always have you back.
You're a sweetheart. I always love once I get a book launched, because that in crunch of getting it done and all the technical part of getting it uploaded and buying ISBN codes and all of that. Once it's out there, and I now have a marketing assistant because I've done 19 books now and I can't keep up with it. But whenever I get through, I lay on the floor and stare at the ceiling for a full hour.
I bet. But they're so close together, because
Yeah.
the 1771 Enfield came out in December, did it not?
December 13th.
Yeah, which was a Friday.
It was Friday the 13th. I deliberately chose that date to release it. So
Yep. I am a fan. So it came out in December, and then this one just now. So that's a lot of, especially with the intensity that you research. You deserve a vacation.
I love you. I take it. I need to go to Disneyland. But
would that be a vacation? That feels too people-y. That would be people-y for me.
Oh, I could ride Pirates of the Caribbean till they throw me off. I only got tall. I'm still a little kid. I just
that's amazing.
Well, no, I'm usually researching the next book while I'm writing the current one. So I'm always watching documentaries or going to bed at night reading about the next one I'm going to do. So I'm usually a little bit ahead. I'm just surprised I don't have a haunted house. People ask me that all the time because I always spend the night in these places.
Yeah.
And they want to know if anything followed you home. And I shouldn't jinx myself, but I love the dark. I usually go upstairs to bed at night with no lights on. It doesn't bother me. Yeah. I'm more afraid of the living than I am the dead.
Me too.
If you'd seen some of my dates, you would understand this.
Me too. Yes. So coming back to 1771 Enfield House, this family is so transparent. They are open about their experience. And what I kept thinking about when I was reading their story was how much they still, like, they are a tight family unit.
Mm-hmm.
And they support each other. There was no breakdown. I mean, I'm sure that there's stuff that we don't know about, but that's normal things within a family, right? Ups and ebbs and flows that happen with life. But how much they supported each other through this whole thing, that a lot of times, if there are, when evil wants to root in, it's divide and conquer.
Yes, very much. Mm-hmm. It isolates each member. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the biggest tricks they've got in the bag, is to isolate. In fact, that psychic sleep, I'm sure you're familiar with that, where a lot of including in the Smurl book, you can be lying next to somebody, that your wife or husband, and something's attacking you and you're trying to get their attention and they're in a trance. Whatever this entity is, has put them into this psychic sleep to isolate you. And I can't even imagine how terrifying that must be when help is just right there. A lot of times they can't scream, they can't move, and yet there's somebody that could have helped them. But
And
it's
then the feeding of that after, because the person who was in that psychic
Mhm.
sleep having guilt attached
Mhm.
to not being there for their person.
Yeah.
There's just so many layers to it, but I just was in awe of how this family has worked together to support one another and to find out more and be open to all the different ways that people wanted to help, right?
They were very blessed to have a lot of people come in, not only helping them with the remodeling when they first moved in, because I mean, this is a really old home,
Mhm,
but that nobody gave up on them. They kept
mhm,
coming back. Lorraine Warren, by then, Ed had passed away and she was quite elderly, but she would work with Joe via the phone while Joe was going through all of it. He'd report back to her and tell her what all was going on, and she would give him advice. But a lot of people care so much about those girls. During the interviews, they would tell me they call me Uncle Jay, or they call, and they just really care about those girls and really watch out for them.
mhm. When yeah, when I came out of the witchy closet, it was a parenting radio show, like my first podcast show was for parenting kids that were intuitive, like my kids were, I was
Oh,
as a kid. It just hits home, and it hits home on a different level. Like I we have pictures of my youngest son who will be 20 in May as a baby, as an infant, and his arm was always up. And then I was understanding it was because he was seeing spirits.
oh my word.
So even like, yeah, we have these photos at 6 months, he's like this because he could see people. And
And how do you articulate that? As a baby, you can't tell
no,
anybody.
no,
Plus, do you even process that this is out of the norm? I mean,
right.
when you're that little, maybe you think that's just how the world is. That would be frightening.
Well, and I'm sure, and I'm glad that they've agreed to come. That they have agreed to come on to the show and talk about it, because it becomes normal when you're in the middle of it. Like when it's just your everyday. Like my kids say, it's our everyday. This is just our everyday. There's nothing out of the norm for us with these things, right? And that's, I'm sure, yeah, it's different.
My mom had psychic ability, and I was always jealous that I didn't. Um, I think I'm an empath. I'm pretty sure I'm an empath, but I'm just too sentimental, and I can really feel people's emotions. And I have the strangest thing of strangers coming up and talking to me all the time.
Hello, empath.
In the middle of a crowded sidewalk, they pick me, including
but
little
that
kids.
But that would work well working as an author and looking for those stories that people would feel comfortable in sharing
Yeah.
details with you.
It
And
always surprises me though. My sons, when they're with me, they'll just crack up. We were in Estes Park where the Stanley Hotel is, and in tourist season, it is wall to wall to wall people. For people who don't know what it is, it's a tourist town. You hear the word park and you think it's a park. It's a tourist town. It's gorgeous up there. It's the gateway to the Rocky Mountains. But I'm talking elbow to elbow people, all these tourist shops and restaurants. This little girl comes out of nowhere, picks me out, comes up and says, "Do you want to see my new shoes?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Ooh, they light up." She goes, "I know." And then this older woman came up and showed me the quilt material she just bought.
oh,
And my son's just cracking up. He goes, "What is it with you?" I said, "Maybe it's because I'm so tall and they can see me over the crowd. I don't know."
it's just a vibe. They know where to go, where it's safe.
I don't know what it is, but I'll take it. I love it.
So
But I was going to tell you, like what we're talking about now about the family being so adjusted. Mackenzie is just so grounded, the daughter and one of the twins, and she runs a business out of the home. She makes her own T-shirts and everything for the Enfield House. So she uses the master bedroom on the renter's side, and there's been a lot of people there that have talked about the haunted closet in that room. And the weird thing that happened for me, and then I'll get back to Mackenzie, is that when I went to see the house, and Jay was showing me around, I glanced into that room. He was showing me a different one, but as we went past the master bedroom, I looked in there, and there's dolls in there, and there was this little tiny chair, and the doll was in the chair. And then he showed me a different room, and when we finally went into that one, the chair had moved in front of the dresser with the doll, and you could see the space on the wall where the chair had been. And I wanted to get pictures of the rooms for the book, and I thought, I'm not going to say anything. I said, can I put the chair back over here to take a picture? And he looked real funny. There was a look on his face. He goes, well, yeah, that's where it goes. I said, okay. But anyway, so Mackenzie, and this is an amazing story. This is how acclimated they've become to this. So she'll work on things in that room with the Cricut, that makes heat presses and everything for t-shirts until sometimes 2 and 3 in the morning. Because that's when she has some quiet time. She said they will let me know, the spirits, when it's their turn to have the room back, because it's like they consider that renter's side to be theirs. I said, how do they let you know? And she goes, it starts with banging in the closet door on the inside and scratching noises. And sometimes I'll be almost done and I'll go, just give me 10 more minutes. And I'm going, oh my gosh. Most of us would be screaming, but she's so used to it and they've never heard her. And she'll go, just 10 more minutes, I'm almost done. And they'll get louder and louder until she'll go, fine, I'm done. But that's how accustomed they are to the stuff going on there every day. It amazes me.
Yeah, it reminded me of Andrea Perrin, right? So
Right.
she wrote her 2 books, House of Lightness, or I actually think it's
She
3
wrote
books.
3.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
they're
3.
huge.
They
Yeah.
are. I've read them all. So House of Lightness, House of Darkness. And we have to remember that there's more than just these very terrifying events. Like there's birthdays and celebrations. There's love that also happens in this house. It's not, like there's a family that's there that has other experiences too, right? So they're in amongst all of that. There's this part to them as well, right?
Well, and Mackenzie brought up a good point. She said back then, because again, this house is 200 years old. People lived and died in their homes back then. They weren't as mobile as we are today and moving all over the place. And if it was winter and you died, they would very often bury you in the basement until spring or summer when they could then go properly bury you because the ground was frozen and everything. A lot of people believe there are bones buried in the basement. In fact, one of the things that happened in the home in the night, was it 19, let me look at my note real quick. 1930s, where are you? Yeah, 1929 was Charles Camparetto, and he was a gangster. And he lived in the home with his wife Rosa and their kids. And he was having an open affair with this woman that lived right down the street. And I guess he'd already I don't know if he and Rosa were a common law marriage or if they were ever really even married. But the night before this incident happened, she wanted the house put in her name. So according to even Charles' son, who was still alive and talked to Jay about what happened later, he made it clear he was leaving the next day to go get Josephine down the street, who was also married, and they were going to run away together. So Rosa had him put the house, the Yapel home, in her name. So the next day they're having lunch. Charles pushes away from the lunch table, gets up, and he's going to go down the street to Josephine's house. He walks in. Her husband was actually one of his best friends. They all worked at the same plant, the carpet mill. And I guess she called it off. And so he took out a knife and stabbed her several times. And then he stabbed her husband and shot him. And the 9-year-old daughter witnessed it all and went running out of the house and ran to the neighbors screaming. And Rosa lived for 3 more days. They got her to the hospital, not Rosa, Josephine. They got her to the hospital and she relayed the whole story before she passed away. Her husband, Angelo, died on the spot. And then Charles took out the gun and I believe he went home and shot himself at home, except 2 newspaper articles said that he actually shot himself right there at their home. It's a little confusing the way it's written, but I went to, Jay took me out to their gravestones and it shows that both Angelo and Charles died on the exact same day. So it all matches, and Josephine died a few days later. So there's a blood stain in the living room on the side that the Apel family lives on in the house that they cannot get out of the floor. And it was in front of where the fireplace was at the time. So it's a big stain. It's almost in the shape of a torso. And I think that it's possible if he did shoot himself at their home, which was again down the street. Back then, a lot of times they would carry you home and lay you on the dining room table. And then the family had to make funeral arrangements for you. And so it could be that they just brought him home and laid him on the floor, and that's might have been where the blood came from. But right in that same area, when Jay was remodeling and they took some drywall down, there were satanic writings on the wall from
Mhm.
way back. There was a drawing of a devil, there were pentagrams, it said Satan. And the fact that it had been walled over and was on old wallpaper, it had been there a while. So it looks to me like somebody down the road was worshiping Satan or doing something that might have pulled something in as well.
Yeah. Like, and so you wouldn't even know the who did that.
No,
Maybe
there's
the
too
time
many
period.
families. Yeah. But the other thing is when they were doing remodeling, and his friend that I interviewed verified it, they took a wall down and 45 bullet casings fell out. Who puts bullet casings in a wall? And I'm wondering if it's because Charles was associated with, gangsters. I don't know. But the rest of like they used to say, the rest of the story, right before Charles moved into that home with Rosa and their kids, there was a family of 5 renting it. They suddenly disappeared, all 5 of them. They never found them. And when they went into the home, Rosa got nervous because all of their things were still there. The food was moldy on the plates on the table, like they'd been sitting there eating. Their things were all there, their jewelry, everything, the furniture, and it freaked her out so badly that she moved some of the stuff to the basement. They never found that family. And so later years, when Jay, who owns the home now, was talking to Charles Campanetto's son, who has since passed, he told Jay, don't go digging in the basement. I don't know, but it's just the most bizarre story. The entire family disappeared and they never found
That's,
them.
that's wild. And it's just an accumulation of bizarre stories attached to this house.
The reason
How,
I wrote
how,
it was when I talked to Jay for the first time on the phone and he started rattling off all of these deaths in that house, mysterious trips and falls, people, taking their own lives. I thought, really, it got my interest, but it was so much until I went and started researching it, and it's all documented. I got my hats off to him. The newspaper articles, I've got 6 of their death certificates that back up how they suddenly caught on fire and burned. I mean, it is
folks
one
caught on
bizarre
fire?
story.
Like it is, it's bizarre. We expect, like, I've had this conversation with a number of people. I expect that somebody has died in any house that I go to. somewhere along the line.
Odds are good, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that, past in sleep, instant heart attack, something. But the manner of deaths in that house is what makes it bizarre.
And there's so many. There's a lot of falls down steps, being pushed down the stairs in the house. That's why I didn't want to come down the attic stairs without being a sandwich between two men.
Yeah.
'Cause I was really nervous, and that is so rare for me. But it's insane, and there's a whole lot more. I mean, you've been reading the book. They
I
would see
finished it,
shadow
actually.
people. I mean, the girls are seeing shadow people walk down the hallway and go through the wall into the other side of the duplex, like it's nothing.
Well, that doesn't surprise me because the wall's not going to stop energy from going from one place to the other. Like they're just going to roam. They're going to roam. It's interesting to me that how they coexist with Mackenzie in that space for her to be able to work out of. I find that fascinating that because you can coexist with spirits. So there's a level of respect from them to her in order for her to utilize that space for herself, right? Like
They're still getting scratched once in a while.
Yeah.
After the book came out, Elkus showed me some new scratches that Courtney had right here and stuff. But
That's
not nearly the level that it had been until 2015. But what everybody warned them about was it can come back, and it can come back with friends, and you've got to really be careful about when investigators are renting out the other half of the house and they're over there saying, show me a sign, and using a Ouija board or something, you can bring something right back in again. And that makes me nervous, but
yeah.
they
And
take
I
a
just
lot
want
of
to
precautions.
I might upset you with what I'm about to say, but we can have a conversation about it if I do. It's not just Ouija boards. Like, I just don't want to keep pinning things onto a Ouija board because it could be an app on your phone that you're using, anything
Yes.
that you're using to open up a door to connect dimensionally with something else is an invitation. Your words
If you're
can be,
actively inviting it, you're absolutely right. You can just do it
yeah.
with words. You don't have to have a
Yeah.
spirit board.
Yeah. So, I think the energy that's attached to a spirit board, depending on where you're at as well too, because it's fear. And if you do not understand how to close the door or how to shut that down, have somebody with you that does. Otherwise, don't do it.
I was really surprised when I was researching the Lizzie Borden house in Massachusetts that there was a Ouija board behind the couch where Andrew was murdered. And I don't know. I don't understand why you would want to have that there.
Right.
But
I'm an avid user of one.
you are?
Yes, I am. Yes, ma'am.
Ooh.
So, and the board that I have, my son brought that board, the wood home from his work. I know the person who engraved it, know where it came from, the history attached, like it was made purposely for me. I think that, it was my grandparents that came through the first time.
Wow. Well, you know what you're doing, though.
Exactly. And like I said, I have been scratched by and growled, that guttural growl, and scratched, and I wasn't using anything at that point in time. It was something different. I'm very careful about asking for permission if I take it somewhere, if it feels like it's an okay place to bring the board to use somewhere, but I don't bring it everywhere that I go, and it's asking for permission. And you're right. And it's not just, it's about the girls, if they are sensitive and extra sensitive, being mindful of who they allow in the space, because they'll be the first people affected too, right? If they are
Mhm.
energetically sensitive and what those people are bringing in.
Mhm.
And it changes the dynamics. Like, and I found that at David Oman's house too. The people that come in to investigate are bringing, like, I bring my team of people, so I have my belief system and who my guides are and my family that watches over me. We're bringing those people with us. Your people would be with you at the Yaple House. Like, uh, I don't know. It becomes a mixed bag of energies if you're not mindful of that.
Well, a lot of people, including Jay, thinks that he's very sensitive too. He had
I
things
think so
earlier.
too.
So I think he's a catalyst there. But we were talking about coincidences. The Smurl book that I just finished is a duplex.
Is it really?
Yep.
Interesting. And the Enfield House is a row house in the UK, is it not? Was it not part of a row house? So
The other
it's,
one, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's
Interesting.
the one with Janet and her Hodgkins, I think. That's the one that was the Conjuring 2 movie where she levitated and a lot of stuff happened in their
Yeah.
home. But
I
yeah,
don't
it was
know
a
much
row
about
house.
The Smurl family. I didn't know anything about them.
Well,
So that was
it's
news to
the
me too. Well,
story
so was,
behind, I'm sorry.
sorry. I was going to say, so was the 1771 Enfield House. It was new to me when the book came out in December. I gobbled that up right away as soon as I saw you post that the book was out, but I had never heard of it before. So I got halfway through.
I really hadn't either. And this is what's funny was I wrote to them on Facebook Messenger thinking it was the Enfield House in London and asked permission to write about the book. And it wasn't until we talked back and forth for about 4 text messages that Jay said, "You do realize we're in Connecticut." I said, "Oh." And then he goes, "But you got to hear our story." And then that's how it started. And when he told me his story, I thought, well, this buries the one in London.
It does.
Um,
Yes, it does. It really, truly does. It does on every layer. Um, it's a wild, folks. Please purchase the book.
well,
Please
that's kind
support.
of you.
Yep, and please support 1771 Enfield. Buy their merch. Head to their website. Support Mackenzie. Please give them a shout out. Follow them on Facebook.
And if you've got an investigative team or just it's you and your friend, you can rent and they're actually their prices, I was surprised how reasonable they are. So you can rent the place and go in and do your thing. They don't let you into the family side, and I don't blame them. That's where they live. But it's a
Yeah.
mirror image, the duplex. So if you've seen
Well,
one half, you've pretty much seen the other half.
I would think too, like they hear those there's activity that happens that shakes the whole house. So if activity
Mhm.
is happening on one side, it's happening on the other at the same time.
Yeah.
And their backyard is like the photos are so beautiful. Like they created a sanctuary in the backyard.
When people, in the Smurls, the book that just came out, it's interesting the similarities because these families are always asked, why didn't you just move? Because the Smurls endured theirs for 15 years. But these people have taken over these older homes and sunk all their money into them, remodeled them, made them their own. Jay was huge about making the landscaping look beautiful. He's got
Mhm.
fake river rock or riverbeds in the front yard. The backyards have koi ponds and a gazebo, and they put everything into these homes. And if there's any hope that somebody can help them and finally get rid of them, um, then I think they're going to stick it out. And the Smurls had the same problem. They sunk everything into that home. They'd already been flooded out during the biggest flood in Pennsylvania history and had to move into the duplex with with Jack's older parents on one side and them on the other. It's not that easy. If you don't have the money to just pick up and move again, and then who's going to want the house if you've already made headlines that there's a demon in there?
And moving doesn't mean that the activity ends. When you
No, it
move,
followed him. It followed him.
yes, yes. So, and just being sensitive, you're going to have that follow you no matter where you go, let alone like the ones that have attached themselves to you. So they're gonna follow along too. I don't know, and it's I I'm probably going to step in a big pile of poo when I say this, but to me, it's ignorant to say to somebody, why wouldn't you just move? You've not
Yeah.
had that experience. You don't know the history. You're not privy to all of the information to have that sort of judgment. And we can hold compassion for people without agreeing with the choice.
Well, absolutely. Plus, they'd already borne it out. It followed them camping. Several times, they just to get out of there. They packed up the family. They had four girls, again a set of twins. This is just so weird. And then their elderly parents, and they would go camping, and every time it followed them. It banged all over the metal camper. They saw the hooded figure sitting at the picnic table at night. They would see these other images, and so they already knew it was going to follow them. And Ed and Lorraine Warren worked very closely with them. That's why this is the story behind the new Conjuring 4 movie coming out in September. And they warned them, and they said, well, you just proved it. Even if you move, it's probably going to follow you. Let's
Yeah.
keep working on it. Let's do another exorcism. And they did finally move, and it did follow them.
Yeah, that's sad and frightening. With with the Yapel family, though, there was their reprieve of some sort with the more intense or that demonic or energies, and it took years and years and years to get there.
Yeah, like he said, 7 priests and 3 exorcisms. So, yeah, the fact that they just kept trying, the only difference between them and the Smurls was the Smurls went public. And it is the most documented real-time haunting in history because the newspapers were reporting it as it was happening, and the reporters were coming into the home and witnessing this stuff. Whereas the Yaples didn't do that for a very, very long time. In fact, it was after 2015 when it was exorcised and cleansed that they finally said yes to a couple of documentaries that wanted to get their story.
Wow.
So totally different. They didn't have the circus camped out on their front yard the way the Smurls did after their story
Yeah.
broke.
I don't know if I would want that either when you're trying to manage a life with children and giving them this opportunity when you're trying to navigate things that you don't understand and can't see, let alone a media circus. That would be
Well,
super
yeah, I
challenging.
mean, you're dealing with what's going on the inside where you're already isolated. 6 neighbors with the Smurls said it's in our house now too. Thanks a lot. Bangings, odors. But then there were so many people camped out on that street for the Smurls that the police had to barricade it. They were throwing rocks and beer bottles through their living room window. They were climbing trees to see in the windows. They couldn't leave the house. They couldn't go anywhere. And
That's frightening.
the only reason they told their story was the church wasn't helping them. They wouldn't come to an exorcism. And they thought, maybe if we put our story out there, somebody who's been through this themselves will help us. Or the church will finally cave into the publicity and come help us. But
What year?
it was horrific.
What year? Sorry.
This was with all of when they went to the press, it was 1985.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think we're so much more, we're exposed to it so much more now. you know,
Mhm.
with the television shows and paranormal investigations and the people that have YouTube channels. It's more acceptable, but that invasive entitlement that some people feel they have is intrusive and debilitating for a family. So
I
yeah, we're
don't
just
think they
keeping
knew
this
it
up.
would get to that heights, but yeah, it was pretty bad.
Thank you for chiming in and hanging out with us tonight. So I'm not sure if it's Mackenzie, Jay, Elka, all of you.
Oh,
Exactly,
are
we
they
did for the
on?
girls. Yeah, they're on. When
Hey
they started going to
guys.
school, changed the whole story. We wanted them to have a normal life and normal for you guys. Like that's what my kids will say too. My kids will say what was normal for us in our house and the conversations and the experiences that we had were normal for us. So as normal as we can give them and normal for us. And we do
They're
want our kids. Yeah.
they're wonderful parents.
Oh, good. Yeah,
They
you can
are.
tell.
And
Except
Elka's such a sweetheart. Every time we would start an interview, she'd come out with all these baked goods because she's from Germany and had all. I mean, I gained 5 pounds during the interview.
I'd be up for that. My grandma was German, and that cooking and baking is amazing. I just don't get the dolls, though. You know, mhm, mhm.
Yeah, I think
Dolls.
what? Oh, if that's Jay, Jay, what's the name of your? Is it Bobby? Is Bobby your favorite doll that you've got there? I think it's Bobby.
The dolls, I don't know. Tony is just sharing back then people thought you were nuts. Well, still there are still people that feel that way, but more back then for sure. Henry, he's saying it's Henry.
It's Henry? Oh, I thought it was Bobby. You have a lot of dolls, Jay. One of them was talking to one of the investigators, which is freaky. It didn't have a voice box, and this doll just started talking.
Crazy. And I know that they have, it was around Christmas, I think. Jay, you can correct me if I'm saying this wrong or sharing the wrong information. They had investigators out that had a lot of activity that they were going to be sharing some of that video on their on their Facebook page, on their public page on Facebook. So you guys can check that out if you're interested as well too.
I think they had another big one this month.
Elka, it's not crazy. I just don't understand. I don't know. So one of the places that I stayed at, I was out of town for an event and doing sessions, and I walked into the room where I was supposed to be staying, and there was a Raggedy Ann doll right there, and I'm like, no, I covered it with a towel for the whole time so that I didn't have to look at it. There's a Raggedy Ann doll of all things. No, thank you.
So they come back in and their dolls are covered up with towels.
Yep, I'm okay with that. Yeah, I can appreciate that. I don't know what it is. I know because I watched Poltergeist and then the clown did it for me as a kid.
What is he saying? My girls don't what? I missed
My
that.
girls don't like them either. The dolls,
Oh, okay.
Elka. Um, I just like creepy dolls, but I'm a
She
gnome.
makes she makes these amazing gnome dolls and sells them. They're absolutely stunning, the detail on them.
Amazing.
They're not creepy, they're gorgeous.
So I bought, um, not that I'm turning into like the haunted collector like John Zaffis, but I had purchased a couple of dolls that were allegedly haunted, and maybe they are. They're sitting right beside me, but I don't feed energy into them. You know,
Okay.
I don't feed energy into them, so they sit on the shelf, and every once in a while I'll say "Good morning, girls" or "Good night, girls," and we've not had any issue with
I've
them.
got my office. I've got a lot of stuff in there that I'm sure people think are weird. I've got moss from where they hung the Salem witches from the site that they found. I've got brick dust from Lizzie Borden's basement. I've got all of this stuff. but I collect bobblehead dolls, and Tesla is one of my favorite people. And I came upstairs once, and I had just bought the bobblehead doll of Nikola Tesla. And I told you I like to go to bed in the dark. I don't turn the lights on. I
Yeah.
climbed up the stairs, and there's this green orb glowing at my desk at the top of the stairs, and I freaked out and turned the light on, and it's his light bulb that the bobblehead doll's holding. It's glow in the dark.
That's funny. That is
I
funny.
hadn't seen it before. Yeah, I just unboxed it, but I just so wow, that was a little bit of a spooky one. But anyway.
That is funny. Okay, I need to be mindful of where we're at. Coming back full circle. Um, how long did you research? Like how long was that research or staying at the house from start to finish for this investigation for this book?
For
With the
the Smurls?
1771 Enfield. Yeah.
Oh, for
No, no.
Enfield?
Yep.
I knew I was going to go out there last May, so I started phone calls with Jay the month before that. And so it started then. I already started to watch all the documentaries I could find on it. Then we went out there in May, interviewed them, and then I came back. We had a lot of follow-up phone calls, and then I interviewed 12 of the investigative teams, John Zaffis and all of them. So I spent the whole rest of the year working on it, and then it came out last December, December 13th.
Yeah, December
So
13th.
almost a whole year. Because I think my first time talking to Jay may have been February or March. But Lizzie Borden took me 5 years. So it just depends on the subject.
Well, and I would think it's a rabbit hole too. It must have, like when you have some new discovery or one layer takes you to the next piece, like I would think it would take as long as it takes, right? Depending
Well,
on where the
absolutely.
information's taking you to.
Well, Lizzie Borden had 4 trials. So I read 5,000 pages of trial transcripts for that book, and I read them 3 times through, and the police reports and the witness reports. But that
Tony,
book is still one of my favorites.
I I tell everybody about the Lizzie Borden book. I tell everybody about you, period, to be honest.
I love you.
Thank you.
You are
Ditto.
on my Christmas card list.
I don't need to be, but the heads up of a new book coming and you coming back to visit, that would be great on Spirit Switchboard. Tony, thank you so much for grabbing both the books. I know that you will not be disappointed at
Oh,
all.
thank you, Tony. You are
I
on
would
my
also
Christmas card list.
I would also encourage the Lemp Mansion. I would also
Oh,
encourage
thank
that
you.
one too. I mean, they're all good, but Lemp Mansion in particular too. Um, my list is long of the ones that I've purchased and read, but for sure the Enfield was just you really can't put Enfield down because it's just like, holy cow, this story is incredible. It's just one weirdness like that. You can't make that stuff up. Weird.
Well, they're very unique. I've never heard of somebody being able to hear a 1940s party going on through the wall with the old music, and the Courtney could hear these people talking, and she said, and she was only 6, and she said,
Mhm,
Daddy, they said they're going to come over here and kill us. I mean,
mhm.
and then Jay put his ear to the wall, and he heard the old time piano music and freaked out and pulled her away from the wall.
And
So
the
there's
kids
a
don't lie.
lot.
Kids don't lie. When kids are having those outside of the box experiences, um, we have to believe them. Even if we as the adults are not having that same experience, they're having a truthful experience and we need to support them. What is so weird about that, and you were right when we talked about it from the beginning, is that intensity happened immediately. That intensity of interaction and you're in my space now happened
Yes.
immediately with them. And that's crazy.
Well, one of the strangest ones was Courtney was 2 years old, and Elka was potty training her, and she had a little toilet. and she started saying Bobby, and I'm not allowed to say that word anymore, but it's the word you use when you kill yourself.
Yep. I'm
So
alive.
it starts with an S. So she kept, and she's 2 years old, and she's going, Bobby, that word, Bobby, that, and Elka's going, what? And they had Barbie dolls. She goes, are you talking about your Barbie doll? She goes, no, Bobby, back there. There was a barn. There used to be a barn behind the house. And she stood up on her little toilet and cocked her head like it was broken and swayed like she was hanging. And it turns, when I did the research for the book, that was one of the Gadaraski children in the 1940s that actually one of them went out to the barn and hung himself. And she's 2 years old. And Elka goes, she didn't even know that word. And then
Yeah.
later they found the twins, again, still very little, playing in their room, talking to an imaginary friend named Bobby. So that's just really spooky stuff. But she was only 2 years old. There's no way she could. In fact, Elka and Jay didn't even know yet. They hadn't researched the house yet.
Yeah, and that's when, and because there's so much history that they wouldn't know with a 200-year-old house, right? Like when my kids were little and saying that they were seeing things or seeing people at the time that I wasn't seeing, I laid out pictures of family at different ages, right? Like, can you point out who you saw? It's not like Jay and
Right.
Elka could do that for their girls because the history is so it's 200 years.
Yeah, and it's spread to the houses around them. People seeing ghosts, people that were mysterious deaths. So it wasn't just them, it spread to and the thing that's interesting is the houses that it spread to were the houses on the original land when it was one huge farm plot. So something
Right.
happened on that land, and
I
it's
I agree.
fascinating.
And I think it's layered. I think
Yeah.
it's from it's just layers and layers and layers that will never be able to be fully cleared, right? So
I don't think so.
Jay's the Yappa family. He's still so Bobby still comes through the spirit box. I got told. That's incredible.
wow.
Tony Sullivan is saying you're welcome. It scared the heck out of me, folks. Buy the books, and is also sharing. I only read during the day.
Oh, well, also the book is being sold at the Yapel home, so they'll autograph it for you, and they have the book there too.
So I don't. I think it's Mackenzie. Is it Mackenzie coming on with you guys? Mackenzie, Elka, and Jay are coming on April 4th. So mark your calendars because they will be coming on to share their experiences. They have sent some pictures for us as well too. So we'll be able to share some of their photos that they have. The books, Rebecca F. Pittman Books. .com, so you can find all of the books and you don't just do true crime or history and haunting. You have other books as well too, and other genres. The list of books that you have coming out is quite long, actually.
Yeah, I get bored. No, I'm doing novels. My first one, When Shadows Walk, came out last fall, and it's being called Agatha Christie Meets Paranormal. So
Yeah, I love that.
I'm doing the Diamond Peacock Club and the Puzzle Box, and those will be novels. But that's all at the website. It's RebeccaFPittmanBooks.com. And I'm loving writing novels because I don't have to go out and do all the interviewing and all of the hard stuff. I can just pull it out of my warped little mind.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. I love
energy,
being
and
on
space.
your show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an open door invitation. If you've got something coming out and you want to come on, you just let me know and we'll make it happen.
And
Thank you.
thank you. And
Oh,
thank you, Tony, for purchasing the books. I appreciate it. Please leave reviews on Amazon. They really do help me.
Do they?
Oh, a lot.
Wow. Hey. Okay. I will do that. I make sure. I know that I post when I send out my newsletter once a month. Like I always add the guests where they can purchase the books or their website. I did post
Thank you.
The connection to the 1771 Enfield
Thank
link
you.
on as well too. So that's super important. Sam is sharing, Rebecca, you are inspirational. I'm trying to attempt my own book and it's challenging. So big respect to you, for you, for writing what you have. And
Well, good luck, Sam. Hang in there. It gets easier.
I'm so glad that you guys were able to hang out in the chat and be able to participate. And I'm really looking forward to having all of you guys on April 4th. So thank you, everybody that was in the chat. Thank you for being here. You guys really make the show what it is. I appreciate all of you. And thank you to the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM out of beautiful New Orleans, to Joe Montaldo, our owner, and Michelle DeRoche, who is our network manager. Next week, guys, I have my friends Ali Prefontaine and her friend Lisa Cunningham coming on, talking about the birdcage in Tombstone.
Tombstone. Wow.
Yeah, so they live there. I met her years and years ago. So she's going to come on and share stories from Tombstone. So I hope that you guys tune in next week as well too, and stay listening for Jeffrey Pritchett. His show, The Church of Mavis, is coming up next as well too. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here, and I will see you next week. Good night.
Good night.